Hey guys, I'm finally getting a handle on all the organization around this place, and thanks to my new lumber rack, I have all my lumber stored away too. Now you've probably heard me complaining recently about all of the excess of windows I have in this shop, so I figured that putting the lumber rack here over this big window was a really good way to utilize some otherwise useless space. Now there were a few tricks and complications to putting this thing together, so check out how I got it done. Now there's a few challenges I've got to get through here. The first is that this entire shop was built with the studs going horizontally. I'm sure there's a term for that, I don't know what it is. So instead of vertical studs, they're horizontal studs spaced every 24 inches apart. Before I figured that out, it was driving me mad because I could never find a stud to hang things from. I ended up having to take an exterior wall down because of rotting reasons, and once I got inside the sheet metal from the outside, I went, oh, now it makes sense. So because of the horizontal studs, I can't just mount the lumber rack up high on the wall and call it good, because those studs run the entire width from that wall to the door on the far side. That's looking like about 14 foot, and if I put too much weight on that, those studs are going to try to sag, because really it's just studs, drywall, and sheet metal on the outside. There's no other structure holding this entire wall together. So for that reason, I'm going to run some supports of 2x4s from that concrete step right there all the way up, and then screw them into each one of the horizontal studs. Basically, I'm making a stud wall on the outside of an existing wall, and with those vertical pieces, all the weight from the lumber rack will be pushed into the ground, down into that concrete foot that they'll be sitting on, and then screwing them into the studs, the horizontal studs through the drywall, is just going to keep that lumber rack from wanting to tip forward. That's the only weight that'll be on the wall studs themselves. If you've been following my channel for a while, you might have noticed that I used to wear a gold wedding ring. I stopped wearing it because I felt bad every time I put another ding or scratch in it, but even more so because it made me nervous to have that hunk of metal on me while I was around so many sharp and spinning tools. I felt safer without it, but I also felt weird not having my wedding ring on and spent quite a bit of time hunting for a solution. I recently got a hold of Groove Life, a company that makes really cool silicone rings, because I wanted to ask them some questions about their design. They offered to send me a ring for myself, as well as 5 more rings to give away. If you live an active lifestyle, you should definitely go check out Groove Life for yourselves. And if you want to win one, head over to my Instagram page, gunflint_designs. Find the giveaway picture and leave me a comment. I'll draw 5 winners from the Instagram comments in a week. Now back to the lumber rack. I did all of the measuring and marking up front so I could do all of the drilling and cutting at the same time. First, I drilled a few short holes so I could recess the screws that will anchor the 2x4s to the wall. Then, I tilted the drill press table just a couple of degrees, then drilled all of the holes for the electrical metal tubing, or EMT. This way, all of the lumber support arms will have a slight upward angle to them to prevent the boards from wanting to fall off. I want to point out that this is by no means an original design. Most recently, I saw that DIY Tyler made a lumber rack in this style, and before that, Jay Bates has done it too. I'm sure that there are a number of other good builders who have also made use of this type of rack. I also had to notch out the back side of my 2x4s to account for some EMT that is supplying power across that back wall. So something I forgot to take into account when I was measuring all of this is just how badly out of level my wall is. The whole wall is slanted out that way pretty drastically. So if I point you down, you can see lined up just right, flush with the wall when it's sitting on that concrete base. And then the further up we go, the further out from the wall we end up getting, until we're the thickness of a 2x4 up at the top. So I'm glad I put a couple of these together before trying to film it and getting really frustrated about it. I ended up having to shim it here where this bolt goes through and shim it up high where that bolt goes through. So now when I throw the level on it, we actually look pretty good. Even all the way up to the top, we've got that nice and level. So now that I've got the wall angle figured out and the spacing issue sorted, now I can put the next 4 uprights in and not really have an issue with it. So now we'll just keep on knocking them out. The rest of the build is pretty straightforward. I started by driving in the bottom screw to anchor each 2x4 in place. Then I proceeded to move vertically, using spacers and driving in each long screw, all the while making sure that everything was level the entire time. With the vertical supports in place, I moved on to hacking up the EMT to make all the arms I would need. It took two 10-foot lengths cut into 14.5-inch chunks to give me all the arms I needed. The beauty of using these materials for a lumber rack is cost. Everything is cheap. I got the 2x4s for $3.14 each and the EMT for $2.75. All total, this rack cost me just under $25, not counting the screws that I already had on hand. So that's a 9.5-foot long piece of cedar. It doesn't weigh all that much on its own, maybe 25 pounds. But I wanted to demonstrate that when you spread that weight out over all the different supports, all the different pieces of EMT, it actually can hold a lot of weight. Now, I weigh about 150 pounds, and it holds me like I'm not even here. So this thing's going to be plenty strong for the amount of wood that I can fit up there. I left this last space just a little bit wide. All of these are 18. This one's actually 24 because that's the spot that I found so far that works best for my bandsaw, and I needed to have a little bit of extra space between these in order to get it as far that way as I could get it. So anyway, that's all there is for that. Now I need to start loading it up with all that lumber from the trailer. Thanks for checking it out, guys.